Most of us think that having a simple will means we've done the right thing, that we've protected our families. But what if I told you that simple document could actually be a $50,000 mistake just waiting to happen? Yeah, let's get into this because what feels like smart, responsible planning can, believe it or not, create the exact financial nightmare you're trying to avoid. I want you to meet Victoria. Her father was the kind of guy who did everything by the book. He hired a lawyer, paid for a simple will, and thought he had secured his family's future. But after he passed away, Victoria just found herself thrown into this legal and emotional chaos, the very thing her dad worked so hard to prevent. Her realization right here, it gets to the absolute heart of the problem. So, what was the real price tag on that simple will? For Victoria's family, it came to a staggering $47,000. Just let that sink in. And we're not talking about some complicated, multi-million-dollar estate here. This was to settle a pretty straightforward $340,000 estate. That means nearly 14% of their inheritance was just eaten up by legal fees and court costs. And here's the thing. Victoria's story is heartbreakingly common. The issue is that a simple will isn't some magic key that just unlocks your assets for your family. No. Instead, it's more like a formal invitation, an invitation to a mandatory, court-supervised process, a process called probate. So what on earth is probate? Well, in a nutshell, it's the court system stepping in to manage your will after you're gone. And it really comes with three defining features you've got to know about. It's totally public, which exposes all your family's finances to anyone who's curious. It is incredibly expensive, as we just saw with Victoria, and it is painfully, agonizingly slow. And that's exactly why you shouldn't think of probate as some helpful process. You should think of it as a trap. It's a system designed to take control away from your family and systematically drain the wealth that you worked your entire life to build. So you might be asking, where does all that money go? Well, while that will might have been cheap to create, the real cost is hidden on the back end. Look at this. Attorney fees, they often make up the lion's share. But then you've got court costs, executor fees, appraisal fees. It just keeps adding up. We're talking 3 to 7% of your entire estate's value just vanishing into the legal system. This comparison right here, this just says it all. For a typical $500,000 estate, you might pay, say, $500 for the will and feel really proud, right? Like you checked a box. But that tiny little cost on the front end can trigger a $35,000 bill on the back end. The difference is just shocking when you see it laid out like this. And the process itself? It's a total nightmare. First, your assets are completely frozen. Your family can't touch them. Second, your will, your assets, who gets what, it all becomes public record. Third, the court takes control, and your family's needs suddenly take a backseat to the court's calendar. And finally, what I call the professional fee frenzy begins, where every single action just racks up another bill, draining the estate month after painful month. Okay, now as bad as all that sounds, we've only been talking about what happens after you die. But what if you're still alive and you can't make decisions for yourself? Maybe because of an accident or an illness. This is where we find the other catastrophic failure of planning with just a will. Let me tell you about Marcus. He had a will, all carefully crafted, but after a stroke left him unable to communicate, his family learned a horrible lesson. That will had zero power. It does nothing for you while you're living. They had to spend 15 grand and go through months of court battles just to get permission to access their own joint accounts to pay for his care. It's unbelievable. Okay, so a will is a direct path to probate and gives you zero protection if you become incapacitated. So what's the alternative? Well, there's a much, much better way that puts you and your family back in the driver's seat. It's called a living trust. I mean, just look at the difference when you put them side by side. A will is public record. A trust is 100% private. A will triggers those crazy probate costs. A trust is a one-time flat fee. With a will, the court takes control. With a trust, your family stays in control. And for incapacity, a will offers no help at all, while a trust provides seamless, immediate protection. A trust literally solves every single problem we've talked about. So let's just recap the big wins here. A living trust completely bypasses that probate trap. It keeps your family's business private. It protects you if you have a medical crisis. It helps avoid the kind of family fights that courts are famous for creating. And the bottom line, it saves your family a fortune. Now, I know what you might be thinking. A trust? Isn't that some super complicated thing for millionaires with yachts? I get it. That is the single biggest misconception out there. And frankly, it costs average families thousands and thousands of dollars.
Let's just look at the real numbers.
Okay, check out the reality. For a totally modest estate of, say, $400,000, the potential probate cost at 7% could be $28,000. A one-time fee to set up a trust correctly is around $3,000. You do the math, that's a net savings of 25 grand for your family. The truth is, if your assets, including your house, are worth more than 50,000 bucks, a trust isn't an expense, it's one of the best investments you can possibly make. At the end of the day, this all comes down to a choice. Do you want your legacy, everything you've worked for, to be managed by you, the way you want? Or do you want it managed by a court system with its own slow rules and expensive fees? It's about making sure your family is protected and your hard-earned money stays with them. If you take away one thing today, let it be this. Your will is not the finish line of protection you think it is. It's a roadmap. And that road leads directly to a courthouse where your family is guaranteed to lose time, money, and control. But the good news is there is a clear path to true protection, a path that avoids that courthouse detour completely, one that gives you control and gives your family genuine peace of mind. These strategies we've been going over are laid out in detail in the book Living Trusts, Wills, and Estate Planning by Robert Chambers. It's available right now on Amazon, and if you're like me and you prefer to listen, it's coming really soon to audible.com. And it's going to be narrated by Tom Brooks.